Guzangpla, and welcome to yet another episode of Heart to Heart, the stories of us. Today I bring to you a very important person. I present to you a very important person who has inspired a lot of youth like me to become a journalist, who has inspired a lot of people how to speak in front of camera. And personally, I have, I became a journalist one time, looking at him, watching him, perform on the camera. And if you watched news before, you might have seen him. If you visited WWF, you might have seen him around. He is none other than Tenzin Rabgye, now the owner of the first ever Bhutanese-owned college in Perth, Western Australia, ABS College. I welcome you, Mr. Tenzin Rabgye, in the show.
Thanks, Shaku. Thank you very much. You're too kind. Yeah, it was a really elaborate thing that I don't think I deserve, but thank you so much.
I think that's, I believe I should have, prepared much more, a grandeur introduction because, seriously, like I said, I watch you do your job on BBS, and then that really inspired me to become one, at some point of time. We will just cut introduction short. Just if you could tell us a bit about yourself and then about your college.
Okay. Wow, about myself, where to start? So I always normally tell this to people who know me, but I have a very mixed heritage. So on my mother's side, I'm actually, my maternal grandfather was actually from Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to Bhutan as a doctor in the 1960s. He was invited by the then Prime Minister, Lenchen Jigme Doji, as a doctor to Bhutan.
Mm-hmm.
He was a young doctor who had just graduated, and so he came to Bhutan. My maternal grandmother is actually from Sikkim, so she's Lepcha. And on my father's side, both my paternal grandparents are from Bumtang.
Mm-hmm.
So I joke and I say that I'm 25% Iranian, 25% Lepcha, and 50% Bumtap. But
Right.
Of course, 100% Bhutanese, because I was born and bred in Bhutan. Like I said, my whole life I spent back home in Bhutan, from my pre-primary schooling to my high school. And then I went to India for 3 years to study journalism, psychology, and communicative English. I've always been a person who has loved telling stories. So that's why when I chose my field of study also, I said, okay, I want to do something where I can tell people stories, because that's what I love to do. Coincidentally, I joined BBS also because of that love of telling stories. But initially, I didn't want to become a broadcast journalist. I wanted to be a writer, work in print media. But then fate would have it that I went to BBS and I just loved what I did. And I'm really glad that, it at least one person here is saying that they were inspired by what I used to do. I really love that job. And then I went to WWF, which was also something which I feel I've been very blessed with my whole life, to work for organizations where, I could do the things that I loved. And then I decided, like many other Bhutanese, to come and see what the Australian dream was like.
Right.
So came here in 2020 with my wife. I studied here, and like many other people will talk about their experiences when coming to Australia. What did I do when I first got here? I cleaned. That's what a lot of us did. At the time, I think we were just getting here. A lot of Bhutanese were just coming here, and then we were trying to get into certain spaces. I'm sure there were already people who were already working in a lot of different jobs. But for me, that's where I started. I started cleaning in IGA.
Right.
Early morning, going and cleaning. It was easier for me because I sort of didn't clean before much, at home. So when someone taught me something new about cleaning, I sort of got up pretty easily.
Right.
So I joke with my friends and say, when you mop, it's like, you're rowing a boat. My wife had a tougher time doing that because she was used to the more conventional way of cleaning. So
Right.
it took her a little while to get the hang of it, but eventually, we did get there. So from cleaning, then we went into delivery
Right.
jobs. So my wife, she went into the aged care pathway where I'm sure you know a lot of Bhutanese people. They went into the aged care sector where they became support workers. My wife took that path. She chose that path for herself, and she actually really loves what she's doing right now. I wanted to focus on my studies because for me that was the primary objective, was to study something I really thought I'll enjoy, communications, and I wanted to do well at what I was doing, because at the end of the day, like I said, telling stories, passion.
Yeah.
So then, before that, I was working as a delivery driver for a long time for a company called Jimmy Brings.
Yeah.
It's an alcohol delivery service. And, initially when I got here, I think a lot of people from back home, when they get here, they have this conversation about, wow, it's really nice to do these types of, these types of jobs, because back home there's a lot of pressure in certain jobs, right? So no matter what job you're doing, there's that mental pressure which you get, and then you get bogged down sometimes.
Yeah.
But here, for me, the delivery job, it was so much fun because there was nothing attached to my job. It was basically clock in anytime you want. You put on the app.
Yeah.
It's a summer day. It's hot. No problem. You wear comfortable clothes. Put down your window. Listen to some nice music. Drive, and then just deliver what you need to deliver. Just say hi, deliver the stuff, and then you're done. So less pressure. But at the same time, at the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, how long am I going to do this? Is this something that I see myself doing for a long time? There was something which just kept pressing against me, and it kept reminding me, is this really what you want to do a long term? It was nice. I mean, I still think it's pretty fun to do because, like I said, you can enjoy, relax. There's not much that you need to think about when you're delivering. But then I thought to myself, okay, you're about to finish studying, you need to think about doing something. So then I started requesting people I know, hey, can you help me out? I'm looking for something. I tried applying a lot of places. Some people got back to me, but at the same time, there were certain people who didn't get back to me, and I totally understand why, because it's difficult. I'm going to drop a name here. Audi Kishorin Doji, we know her as DCD, you know her as well. She was my editor back home, and she had been here for quite a while before I got here, so she's still here. And I remember sending her a message, and I said, look, I really need some help here. I'm looking for something. I'd really appreciate it if you'd help. And she was gracious enough to introduce me to the Bright College. That's where I began my education sector journey in Australia. Right. So when I first joined the Bright College, I joined as a admin and marketing officer. And as everyone does when you first come to Australia and when you get a job like this, you're most of the time they say, okay, because you don't have the relevant experience in Australia, start off with the minimum. Let's start you off at that, and then let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
So that's where my journey began at the Bright College. It was an opportunity to learn.
Right.
I mentioned this to you before when we were chatting earlier, but for me, any job that I've been to, I've sort of found that I've learned much more from the job while doing the job than actually before I went and I did that job from studies and stuff. So that's why I took this as another opportunity to learn. So that's where I started learning so much about the education sector. Then from there, I moved to another RTO called IIBT. I was there for a little while as a student services manager, and then decided to move on to Auscare Training Organization as a marketing specialist. Auscare was definitely one of the places which gave me the opportunity to shine, I would say. I'm very thankful to Oscare for everything that I've learned throughout these few years that I had worked with them. Veronica Dubois is the managing director, and she runs the company with her husband Tony. And both of them were really supportive. Veronica is someone that I look up to because she sort of gave me that opportunity. She said, "Hey, do your thing. Let's see what you can do." And she gave me that opportunity. And so myself and another friend of mine, his name is Tenzin Rabgye. The two of us, we got into Oscare, and then we started looking at student services as well as marketing. So that's where we really learned a lot about the business. And then after a couple of years, what happened was we said, okay, we need to think about where we're going with this. We've been in this industry for a few years now. What can we do to see if we can start something? So those were just the discussions that the two of us would have. Coincidentally, he's not one of the partners that started ABS, but I remember one day going for a meeting, and in that meeting with an education agent, my former boss, he mentioned something along the lines of like, "Oh, why don't you think about opening up an RTO?" And then this person actually said, "Oh, I've been thinking about that for quite a while."
Yeah.
And he said, "Why don't you work with Tenzin? He has the experience. And you guys are both Bhutanese. I don't see why it wouldn't work." And then that's where that started. This friend of mine, he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been thinking about it," and I was like, "Oh, I've been thinking about it as well." And the funny thing is, this friend of mine, we studied together in high school. We were on the same basketball team. He was my team captain, and then we hadn't met for years and years. And suddenly that day we met, and then we realized that both of us are thinking about the same goal. And that's where we said, okay, let's try to think about what we can do, what we can start. And then we said, okay, let's think about making a strong team. So that's why we said, okay, we need someone who's really good at student services, which I think I am. My other colleagues, some of them are really good at what they do in the HR space. There's one person who's really good at IT. So then we said, okay, why don't we club all that together, and then we come up with something. And that's how we started initially going about that. And then we talked about, okay, how are we going to get this done? Because even though we had the experience, there are a lot of technicalities that are there in terms of starting an RTO or a registered training organization. Now, ABS is at the moment not a registered training organization.
Okay.
We are a college, but to get the status of a registered training organization, you have to register with something called ASCA.
Right.
Or also you have to register with them so that you can get in international students as well. So we're in the process right now.
Right.
But I'm very happy to say that we are very positive about it, because we have a mentor, someone who's guiding us, who knows the industry in and out. And that's one of the main reasons why we said, okay, let's go for it. It is an investment. It is a long-term investment that is not going to bring returns right away. But then the long-term goal, the long-term vision that we have is something that we want to really work towards for ABS College.
That was a very detailed introduction. Just wanted to pause a little bit here and then just go back to your introduction part. When you said something about starting off in Australia with cleaning job, I like to ask this question particularly to people who have had this transition from Bhutan and Australia. Like you have, you were with BBS for quite a long time, and then you went on to working for WWF, which is like they are some of the reputable companies back in Bhutan. So having worked in these bigger companies, and then suddenly this transitioning to this jobs like cleaning and delivery in Australia. So what was the transition like, and how was your experience, and how did you feel about that?
I think it's basically like everyone else here. It's like you at one moment, I was working, I was like on television, working, and then after that with the WWF, you're like a donor agency, so you're traveling all around the country, going to the most beautiful places in Bhutan, you know, shooting things with your camera, not really shooting things with your camera, you know, making videos, talking with people, going to the most beautiful places, getting paid for it. And then suddenly coming here, and then you're sort of stuck cleaning someone's, you know, toilet. It's funny because when I tell this story about the first cleaning place that I went to, it was myself, my friend from BBS, you knew her also, Sharab Zangmo. And then there was my wife, and then another friend who used to work for BBS. We all went to clean this house. It was a vacate cleaning thing. And I don't know why, the first place that I entered when we went into there was the toilet, to clean the toilet. I don't know, I just walked into the toilet, and we were given, here it's an hourly system, no?
Yeah.
So they said, okay, for the whole house, you guys get 8 hours to clean. So there was 4 of us, which means 2 hours, and then we're done, right? The 4 of us took 8 hours to clean that house. And you only get paid for the 2 hours, no?
Yes.
So that was my first experience here. And when I came here, I was thinking to myself, a lot of the times I'd find myself thinking, what are you doing here? No, you came from where you were, visiting the most beautiful places, you know, seeing the most beautiful things, talking to people, getting paid for what you love, and suddenly you're here and you're cleaning, you know, and then you think, wow, is this the extent of what my life is going to be like for a long time now? So that was there, you know,
Right.
that shock that I think everyone experiences when they
Sure.
clean, or when they do any sort of work that they're doing once they're here, even if you're pickpacking or you're carrying something, or, you know. By the time I reached the delivery phase, Didi, like I was saying, I was pretty okay with it. I'm a very adaptable guy. By the time I reached the delivery phase, I in fact enjoyed delivery more because delivery was easier than cleaning.
Yeah,
no?
definitely.
Delivery, you just have like, okay, there's an app, you pick up the order, you go to where you have to pick it up, you pick it up, put it in your car, go to where you have to deliver it. And then I have a funny story about that also. You know, I went, after a while, it becomes automated, you know, your responses. So people will say, thank you, have a good day, and then you say, you too, and then you go. So there's this one time when there was this storm happening. I went to Scarborough to drop something. It's a beach area, for viewers who don't know about the geography here, but it's like near a beach, right? So there the wind is even more intense, right? So I went to drop something off, and the person, they said something to me which normally people don't say. So
Right.
they said, drive safe. My head is tuned to auto response, no? So when they said drive safe, I said, you too, and then I walked away. So things like that happen, but yeah, it's something that I did get used to pretty quickly. But initially, yes, it was a huge shock.
I got to hear. We're still stuck with this introduction part. I mean, the college part. We'll just get down. I get to hear that. You know, I also know a few people who, you know, got the shock. After this shock, they had to go back because, I mean, this is something they can't deal with, right? And I also got to hear from a lot of the people that I know that, you know, there are so many people, you know, Bhutanese going back home after, you know, they realize that life here is so hard, actually. Like, it's not a bed of roses. I mean, it's the reality of life. But then in Australia, it's so hard in the beginning. So, you know, while you know, experiencing that transition, did you ever, you know, think about going back and then just not being able to just adjust in this country?
I think for me personally, going back became a really big factor that I did consider.
Right.
Especially because my wife and I, when we first came, COVID was just beginning. And then we said, okay, we have a daughter. She was 2.5 when we first came. And we said, okay, we're going to go to Perth. We'll settle down. And then once we're settled down, we'll bring her with us.
Yeah.
My life, I've had abandonment issues since I was younger. Why? Because not that my mother left me or my father left me or anything, but I think I experienced some of that because my mom went to study when I was a little younger. And until I did the same thing and left my daughter, I was always resentful against my mom. You know, I thought, how could she leave me, and my brother and go to study like that for 2 years?
Right.
No? And I never saw myself doing that ever in my whole life. And then what did I do? I did the same thing.
Yes.
My daughter, she was 2.5. My wife and myself, we decided to come and study. And then we were here, and she was there. And then lockdown happened, and there was a lot of times that I did consider going back. But then I remember this piece of advice from Atta DG, Sonam Pinso. He used to work at BBS as well. So Atta DG and we used to make a lot of programs together when I was at WWF also. He used to be one of our consultants. And when I was leaving, I remember on the last day in Thimphu, he said, well, let's just meet. I just want to say bye, So I went and I met him. And it wasn't a very long meeting also. It was just, we met each other, I hugged him, said bye. And then I remember him telling me, Rabgye, there are going to be times when you're going to think that you want to give up. It's going to be difficult. You're going to think with all your being that, oh my God, I want to give up, I want to go back. He's saying, don't. Remember that you have to be strong and you have to persevere. And that advice came from the most unlikely of places. You'd expect it to be someone who was really super duper close to me. Not that other DJ is not close to me. I sort of became very close to him working with him. He's such a nice guy. And it was his advice that, at the back of my head, I would think about that from time to time. I would think about what my father told me as well. I remember him always telling me, when you start something, make sure that, you do it well. Whatever you do, make sure you do it well. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I sort of stuck and stayed here.
Right. What about your daughter now? Is she here?
Oh, yes. We went back to pick her up the first moment we got the chance. My wife and myself, we made a trip back. In fact, we had actually processed her visa 6 months after we got here. But because of COVID, we couldn't bring her over until 2 years. So the moment borders opened, we made a trip. She hadn't got her visa yet, but we went anyway and applied for a tourist visa. And when we got up there, we had already booked our tickets to come back. Her visa hadn't arrived. We had like 1 week left. We were panicking because we ended up buying the tickets which were non-refundable and non-changeable. But then luckily, we went to Dishpu. It worked. A few days before we had to fly, her visa came through. So it really worked out well that way for us.
So now ABS college. I mean, listening to your stories, how you went from one job to another. I think like all of the work experiences that you had in Australia, besides the cleaning and delivery, were so much related and relevant to the education sector. So I mean, by the time you were doing the jobs, I mean, did you feel that? Did you have any thought that you'll be doing something like this one, like opening a college and owning a college in Perth?
Honestly, Chiku, the thing with me was when I came here the first time, I used to tell everybody this. I said, I'm going back straight after my TR. I think a lot of people do that. I've still seen a lot of friends who do that. And then I met one guy, Namka. I don't know his full name, but I remember as a Namka, I know who he is. He sort of told me, in my experience, a lot of people, they change their minds once they get here and once they've stayed here for a while. For me, I still want to go back. I desperately want to go back. But at the same time, I want to make my visit to Australia something in my life that is meaningful, not just something that I came to do and I, had a tough time doing. That's why starting ABS College is something that I didn't really think of long term before. But then once it came into my peripheral vision, then I was like, oh, I think this is a good opportunity. And I tell this to everyone I know who's in Australia. I say, look, if you're going to come to Australia and you're going to be here a little while, don't waste this opportunity. Australia is a place where it is a land of opportunities. as long as you're willing to take the risk,
Mm-hmm.
I think there is reward at the end of the tunnel. Yes, you have to be smart about it. You can't just jump into certain risk factors without considering the risks. But at the same time, you have to at some point consider, what will I do? What is going to be my legacy when I'm here? Can I do something that in the future will benefit others, which will also benefit me at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the main reasons that I thought about starting ABS College.
Now, I understand the opportunities because I have been also working in this education sector for 3 years now, and then I know the opportunities. I know somehow understand the risk factors as well. But at this time, like with so many colleges closing down, immigration is becoming very strict about the student recruitment. And I mean, I know you guys are not very, focused on the international student recruitment at the moment. But with the international student capping, so many regulations coming in. So why did you think that there is a need for another college?
Well, I think, like I said, Chiku, the main reason that we thought about it was the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Perth is a place where everyone knows, a lot of students
Mm-hmm.
come. And then we did consider the cap as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then, having been in this education sector for long enough, we know that we're not going to put all our eggs in the international student basket. One of the main things that I see for us is that we have a strategy in place which looks at not just students coming from outside, but internal students.
Right.
Because there are a lot of courses that thousands and thousands of people have to do every year. So we want to try to get into that market.
Right.
How do we make ABS College a place where people will want to come and say, okay, my course is now, I have to do it again, my certificate, it's time for renewing it, to do a refresher. Where do I go? We want to try to make ABS that place for people where they don't even have to think about it. They just say, oh, okay, it's time. And then they come to ABS. Not just that, not just individuals, we want to target organizations as well. There are so many organizations here in Perth. A certain sector, I'm not going to name it because I don't want to give out my thing, but there's like more than 30,000 organizations, right? I'm sure some people already know what I'm talking about, but there's like 30,000 organizations. And each organization will have X number of staff who have to do a training every year, So you multiply that by the number of people that have to do a training. Even if a company can tap into like 10% of that, that's a big share of the market. So that's something that we're really working towards. There's so many avenues, Chiku. You've worked in the education sector, so you know as well, like there's a lot of different areas apart from the international student area that you can actually focus on. Having said that, ABS is also still, to begin with, where are we going to look? Close to where our hearts are. So the Bhutanese community. That's where we're going to start because we are Bhutanese. One of the main reasons we started the college also is because it's sad to say, but there are certain instances where some Bhutanese have been misled.
Right.
And now I think we're seeing the brunt of that where a lot of people are getting, they've gone a certain path, misled in a certain path. And because of that, there are certain repercussions that are popping up for them. So ABS wants to be a place where we want to try to ensure things like that don't happen. We want to try to make sure that any student that comes to us, regardless of where they're from, we take care of them. In fact, our tagline is we care because we care about our students. We came as international students and some of us are fortunate enough to have places that care about us that we go to, but a lot are not also. So that's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on looking after our students as well as we want to focus on the Bhutanese market, which is there for us at the moment. We hope that the Bhutanese community will support us just like the Bhutanese community has supported so many businesses here, Chiku. You know this also. You've been in this training industry for long enough. to know that there are so many organizations here in Perth, and I'm going to say this without feeling shy, that so many organizations wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Bhutanese here.
Yes, true.
I'm telling you, honestly. You look at His Majesty's visit recently, no? That was the first time where I got like a mini culture shock. Because I saw so many Bhutanese in one place at one time.
Yes.
I've seen Bhutanese, but not as many Bhutanese as
many, yes.
when people showed up for His Majesty's visit. And that's where you see the sheer number there of people. And that's where you know, even if you can tap into a certain percentage of a market, you're good. Look at most of our businesses here. A lot of businesses that are doing well, it's Bhutanese focused.
Yes.
And they can sustain because there's so many of us in Perth, And that's one of the reasons also we think, okay, to begin with, we want to, we hope that the Bhutanese community will support us as well. Because, like I said, you have to do a training. If you can do it in a company that is Bhutanese owned, which, will think about your welfare also in the long run, would you contribute to that as well? So that's something that we're hoping will happen.
Hope so. What are some of the courses that you're offering at the moment?
So at the moment, to begin with, because we're just in the process of applying for our ASCA accreditation. At the moment, we're doing courses which we don't really need that registration for. So we're focusing on PTE training.
Right.
So the Pearson's English test. We're focusing on giving people coaching for that test. Happy to say that we have a wonderful Bhutanese trainer who Aul Haki from LNB Global, suggested and connected us to. Again, Bhutanese community helping each other. This is the personification. Everyone's so helpful. So Sonam has come to us. She has so much experience, and with this training also, I feel when we have Bhutanese trainers there, it's an added advantage if you're a Bhutanese and you're going to do the course, because certain times if it's a trainer who's from another language speaking background, certain things, we all know Bhutanese, we are a shy people. We can't voice out. Sometimes we feel shy to tell our teachers things we don't understand. In this way, when you have a Bhutanese there, sometimes if you don't understand things, you can communicate with them in our own language, in Zonka. She's like, Sonam nga tsitsi hamago. And then she can explain to them, this is how it is. So that's one of the reasons why we want to hire mostly Bhutanese. Our individual support trainers in the future are going to be mostly Bhutanese as well, to start with. We have trainers who can do all sorts of different courses that way. We have RNs, ENs, Bhutanese in Perth. You'll know this also. We have Bhutanese all over now in all sorts of industries. So people from all walks of life, they're doing everything here in Bhutan. So we can definitely have trainers who can train all of these different things that we want to do. So PT is one of them. The Nati course is one of them. We're going to give people free advice. If they're going to take Nati, they can just come over and then, be like, oh, look, I'm doing the course. I need some advice. And we'll have someone who's running sessions for people that way. Another course that we're looking at is accounting. So we're going to do a crash course for people who have accounting experience from back home. Decades of accounting experience, some of them, but can't land jobs here. Why? Because they don't know the software which is used here. So we want to introduce them to that software. So introductory accounting courses that we're going to start as well. Then we're doing a NDIS job ready program. So NDIS is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So people can become support workers after they do that course. So we're looking at that as well. And another one that we are keen to start is a free orientation program. So what we want to do is any international student who's coming from outside, they don't have to be Bhutanese, any international student, we're going to have bi-monthly or monthly sessions where we have an orientation for people. So when they first come in, like sometimes, even if you have a host, sometimes your hosts are busy, or they don't have time to take you around, or you feel like shy to give them that pressure. We want to provide a platform where people can come, and then we will talk to them about all of these things when you first come to Perth. Something as simple as creating your TFN, creating your account, applying for your police clearance, how to make a resume, how to make sure that when you go on interviews, how you present yourself, things like that. So we want to have a free information session or orientation program for people who come in the first time, and we're going to basically just help them with stuff like that.
Okay. Right. On that note, where you said like you are like for now targeting most of the Bhutanese students, and then trying to recruit like the Bhutanese trainers. Now we have this. I believe not just the Bhutanese, but the other nationals that I have spoken to also have the same sort of a perception towards the trainers. Now, we live in Perth, Australia. It was like we believe that we have like opportunities for like top-notch educational experiences from the experienced trainers, the recognized trainers. Now, like coming to Perth, coming to Australia, and then studying, with Bhutanese trainers. I mean, how do you think, our Bhutanese students, students in general, will receive this one? Because, every student, they will be looking at, the high quality training, high quality, trainer, and then those experiences.
I'm glad you brought this up, Chuku. One of the biggest, I think, misconceptions that we will tell ourselves is that Bhutanese are not highly qualified, highly experienced. Because when I say a trainer, there are trainers who've been doing these jobs for so many years. It might be that they haven't been training in Australia, but they've been trainers back home for many, many years. Not just that, even in the sector here, if you go and you see most of the places you go to, I'm proud to say this, but Bhutanese are considered some of the best staff by a lot of people. A lot of people have told me also, I know this friend of mine is Bhutanese. There's a Karma or a Sonam, Siring, or Tenzin, and they're really good at what they do. I'm surprised that you guys, you're how good you are. And I think if you look at the Bhutanese diaspora here in Perth also, in Australia, you'll see we have people who are professors, people who are assistant professors, people who are lecturers working in big universities. We have people who are trainers working in different RTOs. It's just that opportunity that they haven't got.
Right.
Now, when we say we have Bhutanese, it's going to be easy for them as well. That doesn't, I think the misconception people shouldn't have is that, okay, I don't think they're going to be good because they're Bhutanese.
Yeah.
In fact, you think about it in the way that, wow, this person must be so good that they're getting this opportunity.
Right.
Now, at ABS College, I want to assure you that the trainers that we have, we make sure that they go through a very, very vigorous vetting process. In fact, the trainers that we go through, like the PT trainer that we're going to hire as well, we looked at her credentials before we hired her. So after we got the information, we actually sat down, spoke with her, looked at her experience, looked at all the things that she has to bring to the table, and then we said, look. And I'm sad to say that we had to go that same route which I went through in the beginning, saying, because you're first starting.
Okay.
But at the same time, Sonam also, super duper understanding. She was like, I totally understand where you guys are coming from. And I'm committed to, being with ABS because it's a vision that I see I fit into as well. Because we spoke to her about our vision.
Right.
And after we spoke to her about our vision, she was like, wow, I think I want to be a part of this vision as well. Because, see, Chiku, for me, wherever I've worked, I've been fortunate enough to experience good managers and not so good managers, let's say. I won't say bad, but not so good managers. And good managers have really rubbed off. I believe in a workplace where we create a culture where everyone in the office helps each other.
Right.
We're a team at the end of the day. One of the most influential people who really sort of frame the way I try to lead is my previous boss. His name is Dishin Doji sir. He was the country representative of the World Wildlife Fund in Bhutan. He is someone that I really look up to, the way he used to manage. Very professional, he would let you do your thing. He would give you guidance, let you do your thing. If you don't perform, he will let you know it. He has no qualms about letting you know how you're not doing your job properly if you're not. But at the same time, he is there to lead you. He's not there to just tell you, okay, you do this, you do that. He will actually sit with you, and if he's given you something to do, sometimes in WWF, I remember, he would say, Tenzin, we need to do something, I hope he doesn't get mad of my impression of him, but we need to do something, it's urgent, we need to send it today. I would gladly stay after office, work on it, and he would be there with me. And even if he wasn't there, he'd go home, he'd probably have a shower, he'll buy like a pizza, and he'll be back, and he'll be checking up on us, the team. He'd say, how are you guys going? How are you guys doing? So creating that culture where you know that your boss also is there for you, and your boss appreciates what you do. So important. So I believe in creating a culture for ABS where everyone is there in the office and we can be a team. He also used to say, we spend more time in our offices than with our own families, no? Because 9 to 5, we're there 5 days a week, And then the next few hours we go home. So that's why. How do we ensure that, we can spend the most time, how can we ensure that we make the time that we spend with people in our office more meaningful and more enjoyable? Can we build a culture like that?
So one of the things that we get to see in any college is this like student complaints, So when they get enrolled, the college will promise you this and that, comforts, student support, services, like they will go to any extent to sell the program. And then most of the students that I have worked with, like over the past 2.5 years now, most of them believe that it only happens during the enrollment time, and then once they get into the college, they don't get much support, from the college. So how does how do you intend to just break this misconception, and how do you intend to provide the best services to the students?
I think throughout this career of mine, I've always had one thing that I always tell my colleagues also. It's when you do something, make sure that it's ethical. There are times where sometimes things are not in your control. I mentioned this that time, but when we were at Ozcare for the first few months, it was rocky road because we were told certain things, we believed, and then when it came time for people to go out on their work placements, there was a huge mess. But I was always there, and I was always there to tell people about what we're trying to do to help solve the problem. I think the main thing that we need to do is we need to be open as organizations. I've seen some organizations where if you complain, they just try to push the ball from here to there to here to there. I think ABS, we don't want to do that. And from the very beginning, when you start something, we want to make sure that we have all our systems in place, and we want to be ethical the way we do things. Now, for example, Chiku, I'll give you an example of these past few days also. I've been getting a lot of calls about courses that we don't do. I am very happy to advise people and tell them, look, I think maybe you should go, explore a little more opportunities. And I used to do the same with Ozcare. And that is creating trust with people that you're trying to support. And this was not just with Bhutanese students or Nepali students or Indian students or, any student that used to come to me, I used to always tell them the same thing. I said, are you sure you want to enroll? No? Do some research. I used to tell them, go do some research. There are so many places available where you can do different sorts of courses. There are different options available to you. But if you really want to come here, yes, by all means come here. But I'm not going to tell you, you have to come here. I said, do your research. And one thing I always tell people, read the fine print. People don't read the fine print. I did the same thing. I didn't read the fine print when it came to, one of the phones I bought. And then that was a good lesson. So I always tell people, read the fine print before you sign anything. And the same with when you apply for things also. You need to make sure that you do proper research and then you get into something. But then for ABS, like I said, we want to make sure that we take in feedback from people and we try to address that feedback as soon as possible. So I think with most businesses, what happens is everyone thinks about those aspects, and at ABS we've done basically the same. We've thoroughly studied what the market would be like. We are very open to being adaptable. That's why ABS, we are thinking about not just being a college. Now I'm going to drop the bombshell here. We are actually thinking about making ourselves ABS Group. We actually already have. And ABS Group Nalu, we're going to have ABS College as well as ABS Staffing. So we're going to provide staff to different facilities, different providers who need staff.
Like the agencies?
Yes. So basically a staffing agency. Now, I think this combination will work really well. And that's why we've gone that route. And I think by going that route, we will be able to definitely sustain ourselves. Because when one is doing well, even if the other one is not doing too well, it balances out. So our main goal with trying to establish both staffing as well as the college is so that we can balance out the finances. And we hope that eventually, not just hope, we actually are very, very positive that eventually this is going to be something that is going to grow and we can expand. And ultimately, through that financial model, we hope and we actually plan that we will have a presence in the GMC as well.
Right. Now maybe that could be one of the selling point for the ABS college to recruit the students, because when you say that, are you specifically saying that you would be you would be supplying the students from your college to the employers, or from outside?
So that's why I really like you, Chuku, because you basically just read my mind, So that's basically it, one of the things we're looking at. We want to make sure that at ABS we give people a world-class education. And by giving them a world-class education, because we care, we're going to give them the best possible education. And then when we do that, we know that the students that we have trained have a certain level, right? So for us to be able to recruit them as our own staff also, it's going to be an easy thing for us. So that's why we want to make sure that we have the best training available. And when we put people into the field also, we give them a training with experience also. So that's one of the main things that we want to do. We want to give people training, make sure that they are at a certain level, and we can put them as our own staff also, and then give them employment opportunities also as well. And in that way, we make sure that they do well as well as we do well. So it's beneficial for all of us.
So most of the RTOs here in Australia, most of the common courses that we get the students get to study is like childcare, individual support, community services, engineering, IT. Which all of these courses somehow leads to permanent residency. And most of the students, I should say 99% of the students, they would like to do a course that gives them a pathway to the permanent residency. So are you also targeting something like this, or do you have other targets?
So we have phases. Like I said, eventually we want to go the route of having a sister college back home in the GMC. And so that's why at a certain phase we're going to think about doing a very diverse range of courses. At the moment, yes, we are going to focus on doing courses that will have a pathway to being a PR. And the main reason we're doing this is because the whole international student sector in Australia, whether you like it or not, I think more than 80% is people who would see themselves staying here longer. It doesn't mean that with Bhutanese, I tell this to everyone, doesn't mean that just because someone is trying for a PR that they never want to go back home,
Yeah.
you know. You want a PR because it makes it so much easier for you while you're here, no? So that's why people who apply for PRs, they want to make sure that it's easier for them while they're in Australia. A lot of people do it for their kids because in the future, if you're a PR, your child has to study here, it's much easier for them to do so. So that's why ABS, initially we're going to focus on these courses as well. So early childhood care, commercial cookery. We're looking at even construction, civil construction design. In the future, we're thinking about automobile as well. We're thinking about carpentry. We're thinking about IT also seriously because, like I said, one of our partners, IT Viz. Eventually, when we go to the GMC, we want to take. Why try to reinvent ourselves? We want to take these courses as well. Individual support as well is one thing, because Cheku, once the GMC comes into fruition, it's there. I think one of the main things that's going to be there is the fact that a city will need all sorts of trades, all sorts of people with different skills. And ABS wants to be an institution which can provide people who are interested to learn those skills at a level and at a class which is recognized internationally.
Right.
We want to be that. We want to be a place not just for local Bhutanese students to come and study international level skills, but we want to be a place where international students will come into the GMC to experience an international level course as well as the mindfulness of a mindfulness city.
Right.
So that's what we're really trying to aspire to do.
All right. So now, transitioning the students from between Australia and Bhutan. So one of the main among other prospects that students look at while coming to Australia, one of the main agenda is to make money. So like dollar is a hard currency, so it makes a lot of differences
100%.
back home. So now, when you say that you will have a sister college back home, so how do you plan to transition, between these two colleges, the students, and do you want to, in terms of partnership, like how do you plan to do it? You want to send the students back home to GMC, let them transition to higher level of course back there, or the vice versa?
It can be either or. So, Chiku, with sister colleges, one of the advantages, for example, is if you study Australian standard qualification, and for example, ABS has a college back home, and we have the same course as Australia, it will be recognized in Australia.
Yes.
Now, the work placement component is different. If it's a course which has a work placement component attached to it, that means that the person, even if they come here, it won't be recognized until they have completed the work placement in an Australian setting. So that's one of the things that is there. We envision that there will be different students for Australia, different students in Bhutan, but there is certainly going to be the opportunity for students to do semesters here and semesters abroad. For example, you look at Curtin, or you look at ECU, or they have different campuses in other countries where students who are studying here can go and do a semester outside in their sister college. So we're going to provide those opportunities as well.
Okay. Now, like one of the issues that we're talking about nationally is like brain drain. Like by doing so, do you think this will be, sort of adding to the brain drain, or how do you think this is going to bring a balance?
I think by the time the GMC is actually in place, and we're talking about ABS actually having a sister college in the GMC, I think we're going to be well past that stage.
Right.
We're looking at a very long-term goal, and I definitely agree with you. Brain drain is something which is a huge issue that a lot of countries face. Bhutan certainly has felt the brunt of it in the past few years. But at the same time, I'm also mindful to say, because I see it also like His Majesty pointed out last time. His Majesty talked to us about the fact that he understands why so many Bhutanese are here. We're here not because we don't love our country. In fact, you ask any Bhutanese about their country, our country, and we will all say the same thing. No, we love our country, we love our king, we want to go back one day. That's what all of us say. And I think that's not something that we really need to worry about too much, because at the end of the day, this is something that is ingrained in our hearts. Now, the reality of it, I must say, is that although there's so many people here, I think it's a good thing for a lot of people. Why? Because it has increased the purchasing power for so many of our family members back home. In the past, a nyekor, something as simple as a nyekor to Lhasa, right? It was something that only a few people could afford. And you would see, only a few people could afford to do things like that. But now, people from here are able to send their family members who might not have gotten those opportunities, for things like this, buy houses, let them stay in big, proper, not just, I'm not saying that it's not proper in other places, but luxury, So I think that's really helped our economy. It's helped the people who are back home. And it's just a matter of time before people go back. Now, one thing that does worry me, I must tell you this also, is our younger generation. Because this is something that worries me as well. If I stay here too long, will my daughter want to go back home? That's something that really worries me. I forgot to mention that I did drive a bit of Uber also, ride share for a while. And I met these young Asians of maybe second generation immigrants who've come here as well. And when I talked to them, that really worried me, Chico. Really worried me, because I was having a conversation with them and I was like, where are you from? They're like, what do you mean? I'm from Perth. So I was like, okay. No, I mean, where are your parents from, no? Or your grandparents? And then they would be like, oh, yeah, they're from, this part of Asia or that part of Asia. So my next question was, don't you identify yourself as, wherever they are from? And they're like, no, because I was brought up here. All my friends are from here. My culture is here. That worries me a lot. But at the same time, I sort of understand them as well. Why? Because as parents, we bring our kids here. And then they go to school here. Their friends are here. They spend most of their time in school. The culture for them is different. Now, as parents, we can do the best that we can to try to inculcate our values in them. But at some point, when they become teenagers, my friend, I can guarantee you, we were like that also when we were small, no? They are rebellious and they say like, why should I, That's what so many of them told me. They said, my parents, they expect me to be Vietnamese or wherever they're from, or Chinese or wherever. But they don't realize that that's so unfair of them. They are the ones who brought me here. And I was like, wow. In a way, that does actually make a little bit of sense also, no? Because as parents, we bring our kids over here, and then to say, Alama, they don't have anything, it's not fair. So we have to try to really make sure that we inculcate those values and try to create a connection between our kids and Bhutan. So that's why for me, my end goal, to be very honest with you, is not to spend a lot of years here. My dream job is a job where the college reaches a certain phase where we can just manage it. And we don't have to be all the time. I would love to go back, live in Bhutan. Some people, my parents, sometimes they tell me, education must be much better in Australia. And I tell them, hey, I studied my whole life in Bhutan. No? I'm fine. In fact, I think I'm doing okay compared to so many other people. No, it's not just about that. No, I think it's just a matter of making sure that we see what we have and then appreciating what we have also at the same time. But like I said again, that thing is there. There's always that two-sided thing, no, where you talk about the opportunities. Because honestly, a lot of people who have come here because of the lack of opportunities back home there. I was telling my parents last time, I was saying, here there are some kids who are doing so well. So many people are doing so well here. They can afford to do so many things here, buy houses, they work hard, they do so well. If it were back home, maybe they wouldn't have that opportunity.
Sure.
So I see it as a positive thing as well. But at the same time, it worries me thinking about 1-2 generations down the line, will we end up where, will we have suddenly a Uber driver from somewhere else who picks up our kids and then our kids are telling them the same thing? That's something that worries me.
I hope it doesn't happen because when we get to listen to Bhutanese communities, I mean, everyone, have just one mind, one thought, just go back home, serve the country, king, and the people. So I hope one day I get to talk to you from Bhutan.
yes, definitely.
And coming back to ABS, maybe one as I mentioned before, and you also know that we have hundreds and thousands of vet colleges here, the RTOs who provide the similar courses. What sort of struggle, what sort of competition do you see, and how do you plan to overcome those?
So I think one of the main things is how do you set yourself apart through. Most important, I think, is the student services. The student services, the trainers that you have. There are, and you know this also, Chiku, you've been in the industry, there are so many registered training organizations who are what you would call a ghost college. There have been so many students from all over the world who have fallen prey to these colleges, thinking that they are receiving certificates which are easy to get because there's a certain process that they followed. How do you set yourself apart from places like that? How can you make yourself a brand that can be trusted, that can be seen as a place where when you go, you set yourself apart from everyone else, where they say, okay, if I go to ABS, I know that these guys will take care of me. One of the most important factors I have found in marketing is the word of mouth from people.
Yes.
Because if you have a student who's had a very good experience with you, they normally are very open and they tell you also, wait, sir, I did the course with you all. I really enjoyed how you guys did it. And then also, you looked after me so much. I'm sending my family, or my friends, or I've told my colleagues, So at OSCE, that happened a lot also, where student services, I don't mean to be braggy, but there were so many instances where in other places you would, get a response like, oh, I can't deal with that. It's not my thing. You talk to this person. No.
Yes, true.
If someone would come to me as a student services person, I would always say, look, don't worry. Let me see what I can do. And it's just the way you communicate with people. No? Even if you cannot do something for them, you can at least try. No? Because what's the worst that can happen there? It's the same thing. It might not happen, but at least trying also, no? Showing that you care about individual students also is very important. And there were so many instances where sometimes I couldn't do anything about it, although I tried. And the students would come to me and say, look, don't worry, sir, I know you tried.
Yeah.
But that's important to me. You tried. You didn't just see me as a number and say, oh, no, I can't help you or call this number. You tried. So that's something that we want to do. Make it a culture where we make sure that we don't see people as just a number. We see people as students and as individuals who we need to help. And that's why we got into this thing in the first place, to educate people and be able to help.
I understand. I mean, I also work in student services and I totally understand. Like what students go through, what do they expect, and how we need to respond to their queries, their the questions and their needs. I mean, I don't know if this is too early to ask this one. I mean, you already mentioned that you're going to have a sister college back in Bhutan at GMC. Now, how soon do we get to see another branch here in Perth?
I think honestly, the reason that we're where we are located at the moment, Chiku, in Balkata, is very strategic. When we first started looking for places to call our campus, we visited so many places which were like ready-made for us to move in, and then we could straight away apply for our registration.
Right.
It's called a 9B approved campus. We actually went for something that didn't have a 9B approved campus. Why? Because there is potential for growth. So we're located in a place where there is a potential that we can actually expand into 3 different units.
Right.
We already have 600 and something meters square campus, and there is the opportunity for us to triple that. So that's why we actually went to this place. We've also already talked to the owner of our campus, the person who owns the building, and we've already told them our plans. We said, look, this is why we're here, and this is what we're planning to do. And I believe I was having a chat with him last time. His name is Paul Officer. He's a very nice guy. And he was also saying, why did you guys choose here to come here? So I was telling him, it's the same reason we told you before, because we had a good feeling. Sometimes you have a good feeling about some places. We talk about faith or karma. I said, I think it's our karma that we're here. Because for us, we had a feeling that, this is the perfect place for us. We really liked it, and there is opportunity to expand. And when I asked him, I said, why did you let us rent it? He was saying, honestly, a lot of the people he knew, a lot of the people who are close to him told him, don't rent it yet to RTO. Because, too much hassle getting this, approval and all that. But he's saying when he met us also, he felt, like, oh, maybe this is something that will turn out to be something good. So he had that feeling as well. So that's why I was saying, see, it's faith. That's why we're here, no?
Right. So I think this covers almost all the aspects of ABS and its journey. So if you have anything that we have not covered in this interview.
Oh, Chiku, that's the wrong question to ask me, man. I could go on for quite a while, but no.
I can give you just 2 minutes.
Now, I basically just want to say that, I just want to point out that I didn't mention this that time in the beginning about how I felt when my mother left, and then I felt that sense of abandonment, and I did the same thing. And I think it was very important for me to also mention that I finally realized why she did what she did when she was younger, when I went through it myself, Because at the end of the day, you wanted to do something which would enable you to be better for your kids, right? You want to do something that will enable a better future. So that's one of the things I think was something I realized along the line. I want to say a huge thank you to you. This is the first time I'm meeting you also in real life. I've seen you on TV so many times, and it was a really pleasant surprise to get to know you personally, meet you, talk to you. We spent quite a while before we were here on the camera also. I was talking with Chiku, but it's a good experience here to know that there are so many people who are talented and who also have the same dreams and aspirations as you. I think one of the things that makes a lot of us Bhutanese unique is the fact that we care deeply about our country. And I think His Majesty summed it up so beautifully during his speech last time. There was a group of us who were actually in the media room. And when His Majesty said goodbye to the people, and then he said, look after yourselves.
Yes.
Because you are all you have here. That really teared me up, man. It really did. And I looked around the room, and I could see all my other colleagues also. They were also wiping their tears, We don't like to show it out in the open, but it really hit home for me. I think that's something that we really aspire to, and that's what we want to do. And we hope that as ABS also, the Bhutanese community will take care of us and allow us to take care of them as well.
And then with that note, that was Tenzin Rabgye, the owner of ABS College, our own, the college owned by our own people, if you want to know more about the college, the courses, you can just approach him, call them, They're just nearby, Balkata. I think it's in the same vicinity as most of us. So that was Tenzin Rabgye sharing the journey, his journey to Perth, to Australia, and the journey, the birth of ABS, and the journey ahead. And yet another fruitful discussion, the story of success, the story of perseverance, the story of heartbreak, of course, departure, but mostly of resilience, of perseverance, of hard work, dedication. That's what defines Whitney's. So with this note, we come to the end of yet another episode of Heart to Heart, the stories of us. Until next time, this is Cheku signing off. Goodbye.